I have a special opening.
Oh, no. It seems like anytime there's something special, it's usually how far can we kick Josh for a little while. So
No. It's not. No, I don't have any. I don't have any ripping on you today. So
You're like Batman. We only do it because you can take it.
all right. So this is actually going to be the start of our podcast today because I've got to introduce something. Welcome everybody. Normally we have the big voice guy come in and stuff like that, but something happened yesterday that was fantastic news, and I may be the only one here that thinks this is a cool deal, but I thought we'd need a special open for our show today to honor the big announcement that happened yesterday. And you guys can tell me if you know what this is.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know. I didn't tell anyone.
I'm confused. Stranger Things.
Unofficial 40.
Nice.
Carrie Murdoch. Josh McCuistion. Eddie Radosevich.
Joe Duvall. All right, welcome to the podcast. It is another edition of the Unofficial 40. I just wanted to play that because it was announced yesterday that season 2 of Stranger Things is on the way in 2017. I don't know. Have you watched it, Eddie?
I know. My roommate watched it.
You have a puzzled look on your face.
My roommate watched it, but I never got into it.
Oh,
but I did see the kids on, I guess it was Jimmy Fallon last night.
Yeah, they were on Jimmy Fallon.
That show is fantastic.
Josh, do you have an opinion either way? Have you seen Stranger Things?
I haven't, and everybody I talked to is like, oh, you got to watch it, you got to watch it. But really, most of my nighttime watching at this point is either like I just got done watching U of H and Florida State from last year, or I watch, Peppa Pig. That's a huge one in the house right now. So it's pretty much pure football or childlike innocence. I really don't have any time for the other stuff, which is truly sad.
Well, you need to find some time. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're not like an E.T. poltergeist type. It's probably more like nostalgia.
Yeah, lots of
for
80s,
older guys.
Lots of 80s nostalgia. If you like the Goonies, stuff like that,
It
I felt a
takes
great Goonies vibe.
See, people keep saying that, but you're wrong.
How's that wrong?
1983 is what the year where it's set, so it's all very period correct and everything. And the music is fantastic. Like that was the theme song, but it's pretty good. So anyway, we are headed to Houston. Eddie and I. Josh is already in Houston because it just happens to be a perfect home game for him to start. But Eddie and I are going to take off after the podcast today. Driving down, we've got some high school games that we're going to go check out. Well, at least that's the plan. Like right now, it's almost noon. And Josh, my chair just fell apart. Sorry. Josh told us that we needed to leave by noon, so I think this podcast is going to be longer than 20 minutes, so we're going to miss that. Plus, I still have underwear in the laundry, and I'm going commando right now, Eddie. You don't want me going commando the whole way to Houston.
Guys, we need to set an over-under here. We need to have a little game. Carrie's plans to make high school football games against actual games made.
Or just anything in general.
Over 2 right now.
Just anything other than practice, like Eddie will tell you, I never miss a practice, an interview.
Never.
I don't think I got sick last year. I missed my first game in like 15 years last year when I got severe bronchitis, TCU.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I remember it like it was yesterday because I was dying.
It went from,
that's right.
I'm glad I didn't make it up there. Right. And then,
remember I cracked my ribs up and stuff because I was coughing so much? Yeah. It took me like a month to recover. So that was really bad. And then I got sick last weekend. So it's like travel to me is it's very stressful. Just like right now, like I got stuff in the laundry. We got to get out of here. We're going to be gone for 4 days. We got, take pictures. So we got camera. Plus our new camera just broke that we bought just for this season with the super 23 times zoom lens.
We're going to give it a try though. Maybe it will give us.
Oh, you want to take it? So now we got more crap to take?
Well, it doesn't matter to me.
You guys should just try it out on the road trip. Do like a vlog as you go to work, and while you work on the camera, test it out.
It's a lemon.
The good news is today's Thursday, so we still got at least 48 hours till kickoff.
I was almost going to overnight us another one just so we could have it, just because I was so disappointed. I mean, we tested it all summer, And
Well,
then it
it
worked
worked
like a charm. We took it to rivals
Monday.
camps.
It worked up till Monday.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, it
Or
stopped working on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for post practice on Monday.
What are you doing, Eddie?
Just playing with this little.
Give me the vice grips. Stop playing with vice grips in the middle of the podcast. I was fixing the tripod. See, our tripod's busted
Tripod's
up, too.
broken.
We're falling apart as a company, Josh.
we're in worse shape with injury wise than OU is.
We
going into
are.
Saturday.
We're more injured than OU.
I'm shocked that it wasn't me that broke the camera. I was almost sure that was going to be something that happened to me, but I made it through. It wasn't me.
I think it's definitely
Joe's already done something worse.
mechanical error. It's nothing that we've done.
Joe, you have a sideline pass this year. Let me ask you: when the first game comes,
Yep.
and I give you the camera,
Uh-huh.
are there going to be any pictures at the end of the game?
At least 7.
If you forgot or you didn't listen to our earlier podcast, Joe's first in-game assignment for us was the spring game. I loaded him up with 2 different SD cards, and he shot the entire game. Probably took hundreds of shots, maybe 1,000.
Maybe even 1,000 beautiful shots.
And the card was not seated in the camera, so
To be fair to myself, as I often am, the memory card was like in a weird position to where I think even when you opened,
it was like a miracle.
yeah, like when Kerry opened it, I imagine it was like a toaster, like it just sprung out, and he
Somehow
snatched it.
the card stayed in long enough for him to close the lid and not pop out, but still not be in the camera.
I didn't even know that was possible.
I didn't either.
It's possible when I'm working on something. That's
Kerry,
why.
We're not here to rip on Joe. That was not the plan of the podcast.
Kerry
We're
could
here to
do
rip
a
on
solo
Josh.
podcast, just ripping Joe and I's video and photo abilities. Like
I could.
Kerry has spent hours working with me, and I'm still basically a Neanderthal.
Eddie avoids it because he is a master at editing video
Yes.
and fast.
Thank you.
He
I
does-
knew I was around here for
Eddie
something.
is the only one here, and I'm full of hubris right now. Eddie is the only one here that does something better than I do, which is
That's
edit
good.
video fast.
I
So,
can get
Eddie,
it out. I can churn it.
Your job is secure. Joe, we're still waiting for your thing to develop.
My nature by definition is worthless. I'm great at trivial knowledge, things that are trivial by nature, not helpful. But anything that's useful, I don't have in my brain.
Joe is making a name for himself with the 3-2-1,
Yes.
even though it's just 3-2-1 in his world.
To me, the 3-2-1, I
The
thought
3-2-1. It's
right.
like
But you say
you
it's
just
got to
keep
be
out 3-2-1.
right. But it's got to be. You say it's got to be just 3 things, and I kind of like the format I got going, where it's 3 things, then 2 things, then 1 thing. That's double
You
the amount
haven't.
of things.
Eddie, give me this. Eddie is still playing with stuff. God dang it!
I'm just trying to get Kerry to
That's a-
cuss in the first.
I'm not going to be the cusser.
He left toys out over by the
I'll leave
playpen where
this.
we're at.
You
so-
have okay. You can have my keep calm and carry on
Jive
paperweight
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
We should have taken this podcast mobile, guys.
Yeah.
I'm
This is
currently
one. This is
looking-
one more thing that's on the desk that I know Eddie is reaching for next. It's a drill.
I've
The
got
drill bit.
blocks to play with for Eddie. We've got dolls. We've got little guitars. I mean,
Yeah,
really,
I'm gonna have to stay in with Laney on Friday night while you guys
Yeah.
go to the game.
Pop in Zootopia if you get a chance.
nothing wrong with that movie.
We could do a game where we just find things in Carrie's house and play them near the microphone and have people guess what they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of crap laying around.
We'll be taking call-ins.
Okay, so we're going to Houston. Back on track. Seemed like there was something else I was going to bring up before we started, but I can't remember now. We're off the script. Tonight's game, Josh, tell us who the combatants are tonight and why people should care about this game.
Well, you've got Manville and North Shore. North Shore's coming off a state championship last year. Manville, always one of the most talented teams in Texas, and really no exception. OU's already offered their 2018 wide receiver athlete, Jalen Preston, one of the, probably top 10 players in the state of Texas in that 2018 class. Already spoken with him. There's some talk that he may come up for the A&M game. I believe he told me last night he will be at the Houston game this weekend. So he's a guy already getting a ton of attention, got offers from everywhere, and has even told some that Oklahoma's kind of in his top 2 right now. So I think Definitely one of the primary focuses. But I think the guy that everybody's going to want to hear us talk about is Caleb Von Chashawn, the outside linebacker offer from North Shore. Just a guy that has, and not just rumored to be, has last time he put out a list, he put it in order and had Oklahoma as his number one. He's a guy that I'm really high on. Had a chance to see him last year. Kind of wasn't a guy I went to see. I was going to see Tyree Cleveland and Ed Oliver from Spring Westfield, but you just couldn't help but notice this guy, and he's a playmaker. So I'm really anxious to watch him go against a really talented Manville offense and see him make some plays. So this should be one of the better games in the Houston area this year. There is just Manville and North Shore. I guarantee you're going to see at least a dozen Division I players. Maybe they're only sophomores. Maybe they're not ready to go. But there is a ton of talent on both of these rosters, and you're going to get a chance to watch really about as good as Houston football gets tonight.
Now, I was wondering, would some assistants go down? Maybe watch it because of Caleb Vaughn. I don't know. I guess Thibodeau could go down. I know I was told that Thibodeau was going to be at Marvin Wilson's game tomorrow night that we're going to go see. But it's going to be a really good chance for these coaches to kind of get out and make an impression over the weekend with the big game coming up on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, it's just there for them to do. And like you said, I mean, it would be crazy for OU to not be at that game. I would be surprised if you don't see, Thibodeau, probably Mike. I mean, actually, now that I said, I think Mike may actually stay in Oklahoma City. I'd heard a rumor he may be at the Midwest City Booker T game. But
yeah, I can tell you Mike is not going to be there to see Marvin.
Yeah, that as soon as I said it, I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. But I would expect a couple staffers to be there. Marvin's just a huge deal, would be a massive piece for this class at a position where they have a big need. So it really works out nicely that Oklahoma is not only playing in Houston, a place where they're recruiting more and more, but doing so in a year when they have, not many targets left, but a few of the really key guys are in the Houston area.
But tomorrow night, Marvin Wilson, big game. We're all definitely going to be at that. We're still up in the air about whether we're making tonight. Because as you guys say, I'm in charge of getting us there. So I don't know if tonight's going to happen.
Sidebar, are we getting a van?
No, because the freaking camera broke, and I'm being super cheap right now because I don't know if I'm buying another one or not. I'm trying to save money, Eddie.
It's all right.
Pay your salaries.
Good decision. I support that 100%.
A great van.
I do love the minivan, though. It sounds like you're saying, Eddie, you're a fan of the minivan.
I love the minivan. I had a buddy in high school that drove an Astrovan. Spent many nights in it. That sounds
sketchy.
Spent many nights in it.
Like it had a bed in it?
No, just we'd sleep on because you couldn't go home in the state that we were in, so you just slept in the van, park it in a neighborhood. And
were there little places you could hide in Oklahoma City growing up?
Oh yeah, especially
where cops wouldn't come and bug you.
Sometimes they would, but it was really strange. Is because I don't know. I guess because we were on the north side, they just kind of check on us and let us go. We never got it in trouble.
So weird to me. Because like Duncan, there were places you could hide. There were like cul-de-sacs, like in empty neighborhoods, or
that's what we did. After a night of parking lot pimping.
That's growing up in Oklahoma, folks.
Yeah,
Oklahoma City. Yeah.
Well, it's the same all over Oklahoma, basically.
Yeah.
My only minivan experience was the Adrian Peterson commitment. That's my only time to ever drive or have really been in a minivan. My mom was not a minivan kind of person.
So why were you in a minivan?
Have you not? I thought everybody, Adrian, my truck, I'm driving. I had a Chevy like 1500 at that point. And I'm driving to Palestine the night before his announcement ceremony on signing day. And I'm driving down, and I get to about Purcell, and all of a sudden I'm going up a hill, and I can't do better than 40. And my speedometer is just falling. I blew out my transmission on the way to Palestine, Texas. Well, I had a buddy that ran a car lot, I guess shameless plug, a Diffie, and he I was like, dude, I need a rental car, and I'm not 25, so I can't just go to like National and rent a car. I was like 22. They won't rent to anybody my age. So I'm like, well, what can I do? Call my friend. He's like, dude, I got a car. You come use it. It's fine, blah, blah, blah. So I go, and he gives me like a 2001 Ford Aerostar or something, like some. And it's not terrible, but it's a minivan. I'm in my early 20s. Like, I've never been so shamed driving something. Adrian sees it. He makes fun of me. Like, it was a whole thing. Like, it ended up being kind of a semi-story of the announcement. Was him coming outside, and we were talking. And he's like, "That's you?" "Yeah, man, that's me." And he goes, that's a nice minivan, dude. Like, I swear, he's like, "You're not married, bro." Like, I think he thought maybe the guy he thought he knew was actually a really creepy white guy. So it was kind of an interesting story to go with.
That's interesting. I mean, being ashamed of the minivan, I'm kind of ashamed of you.
Yeah.
The minivan,
no,
minivan
it
is
wasn't my
awesome.
proudest moment. There's no doubt. It was kind of like a few years ago when you had what was it, Gundy? No, was it?
Yeah,
no,
it
it was Bob. Bob went to see Justin Johnson years ago and had to borrow the airport's like
it was like a
87
Cadillac
town
or something,
car or something.
yeah, it was
yeah,
like
some ghetto ride.
Riley and Gundy also rolled around in that the first week they were on the recruiting trail together in like it was like a, I don't know, it was an old like Cutlass
Like
or something.
Like an old Buick or something, like a Caprice or something like that.
they probably, whenever they need to go to like somewhere around Gilmer, they probably go to that airport and ask for it now.
Is that where they got it from?
This is one of those things where if you're like those guys, it's kind of like cute and humorous if you show up in a minivan or an old like Taurus or something. In our line of work, where we already hang around high school kids way too much and talk about things all the time, I have to tell my friends, I talked about how this guy's legs today and how good they looked. Like, this is not a great line of work to be rolling up in a minivan to a high school. Like, I think we should have like, you have to have something that's a little more, I don't know, less creepy, less, I don't know. I don't want to say the word.
Unless you own it and just like, yeah, it's my whip.
Eddie, I don't have what Eddie has, where Eddie can just own anything. I'm gonna be freaking out if I show up.
All right, so OU is going to be in Houston. I mean, it's not the NFL, but it is. I get this, and Josh, you're there, so you tell me. I mean, just the mood of Houston for this game. Are people talking about it like just the general sports fan? Are they interested in this game? Is it reaching that type of an interest level?
Well, we should say when I go out, I kind of have blinders on. I don't really want to talk to anybody in Houston, so I limit myself somewhat. But when you look at like the newspapers or listen to local radio, there's some enthusiasm, though some of the local radio stuff's been eaten up by the Tom Herman banning, or I guess not
battle
banning,
with that radio station.
Yeah, walking away from 610 and wouldn't let, which is the biggest station in Houston, so it's a big deal.
That'd be like if like Bob said, "Screw you, sports animal."
Exactly. That's the best comparison. I mean, because there's a few other outlets, but there's no question who the biggest one is, and it's them. So that's kind of eating up some of the publicity, but there's a level of excitement, and which is rare for UH. I mean, even when someone was here, like I've been here 6 years and I've never heard anybody talking about the U of H, opener, whether it was home or any UH game. But people are excited about this. I think being an NRG makes it an even bigger deal, as U of H's stadium doesn't hold, isn't a huge place and really is kind of an area that people just don't go to that often. So I think there is some excitement. I think people are pretty jacked up. I had seen an estimate where someone was assuming like 50,000 Houston fans were going to be there. I don't buy that. I probably in the 6 years I've lived here, I can probably count on both hands how many times I've seen like a UH sticker or a flag or anything like that. So I don't know that I'm buying their 60 or 50,000 people that want to buy a ticket.
I agree.
So, but I mean, I definitely think there is a new level of enthusiasm for it.
I mean, the capacity of that place is only 72,000, right? I don't think it's
72.2. I think.
Yeah, I don't think 5, 6, 7.
It's sold out. I mean, it was announced yesterday that it's sold out. So, but I would think it's going to be 60-40 OU.
Yeah, I would think it'd be more OU fans,
if not more than that.
Well, because there's a huge OU alumni base in Houston.
Yeah,
I mean, not to forget all the transients, but I mean, just people that are gonna, that live here every day. We've got a ton of them on our board.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably millions within 4 or 5 hours away that are OU fans. So I don't know. I would assume it's going to be more OU fans.
It's great. It's great what Tom Herman's doing, but I absolutely hate the
H-Town takeover.
When you turning a program around, making them into a big name or whatever, I just hate it. I don't know.
You hate it?
Yeah,
You hate them turning around the pro. I thought they were leading into something.
I know.
No.
I was like, you hate something about Tom Herman. That's a new level of hate right there. That's just I hate it. To hate it.
Just, it's Houston. It's just to me, it's just a commuter school. It's very below me, I think. And really to even have to talk about him in the same sentence as OU is a little, I don't know, it's a little below me.
Ah, dang it. Hold on.
There are only two things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
But
That's Eddie right there.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I guess even just the thought of them being in the Big 12 one day
Is that where it's
really
coming from?
kind of sets me off. It's really pathetic.
Well, here, maybe I can expand on where Eddie's going a little bit. Because I was thinking he was going to say, because you turn around these programs, but Tom Herman and his staff aren't thinking about staying at Houston. I mean, they're not. That's not a long-term solution for them. As much as they can scream it, Tom Herman won't be in Houston in a couple of years. It's just a fact. So, I mean, it is really, I won't say like Eddie and just stay down, Houston, we don't need you up, but it is a little fleeting. It's a little insincere almost because it's as long as that coach is there. He's not going to be there forever.
we've just guaranteed Herman's not coming on this podcast. That day is now ended.
Take that, Tom.
I think we'll get over it.
Well, we tried to get him on the sports animal this week, and
He said no.
well, Bassity told me there's too much going on. David Bassity.
See, that's the one thing that I hate bad mouthing Houston because Bassity's down
David
there.
Bassity's down. He was a former
He needs to get out.
assistant sports information guy at OU. He's a great dude. One of my favorite guys.
he needs,
But yeah,
he needs to get out. Get out of Houston.
I think Missouri could have hired him at one point while he was down there. But yeah, he's really good.
You might want to just stay at Houston if the other option.
Yeah,
is
that would have
Missouri.
been a really bad job to have right now.
You'd be very
Missouri.
busy, I bet.
Yeah,
PR wise.
No kidding. But okay, I was leading into: is it enough? This was really my question, Josh, and I'm glad that you. By the way, you're so relaxed today, talking on your microphone. There's no yell talking. It's nice to have normal Josh.
Levels are
with us.
good.
We ask you a question, you talk for a really long time too.
It's not rocket science. Just say yes and we'll move on.
I mean, I'm proud of you. You're your old self today. No, but that was the thing. It was, okay, is it enough of a buzz to where it's going to help OU with high school kids in the city of Houston just by playing a game there this year?
I think it can help. I really do. I mean, this is something where Oklahoma gets all the spotlight of, frankly, the biggest, talent bed in their region. I mean, anywhere that's has any good proximity to Oklahoma, there's nowhere that's better as far as pure talent, whether it be top-end guys that are development types. Houston just has so many players that this isn't just about 2017. I mean, we can talk about Chasen and Marvin Wilson, and you can go down the list of a few other guys as well. But really, I mean, this builds to 2018 where, like I said, Jalen Preston, a guy I'm going to see tonight, and you just move forward and you get to kind of continue to put your stamp on recruiting in this area, which has become a bigger priority for Oklahoma, and I think only can get better with a guy like Calvin Thibodeau, who has so many connections in the Houston area. So it can be big. Do I think, anyone's going to commit because OU wins this game by however many? No, that's not going to happen. Now, on the flip side, I think it's a risk for Oklahoma as well, and it's just specifically in this one situation. Caleb Von Shashan is a guy that has a lot of people telling him to stay close to home. They want him to, stay here, and he can play the same level of football at Houston that he can at Oklahoma. Well, a few years ago, that was insane, but now that Ed Oliver chose, Houston over everybody and probably was the number one player in Houston last year, and you get that kind of thing, and if Houston can go out and beat Oklahoma, then you have something there. I mean, that's a chance for Houston to say, look, you don't have to go to OU to play in the playoff. We're going to have a chance to do that this year. So Oklahoma needs to win this game in his case, but by and large, I don't think it has a huge negative impact if they don't win, but it's definitely something that can hurt them in that one scenario.
You know what's really strange? I just noticed this. Another tangent, sorry. OU used to have an offensive lineman named Kelvin Shashan. You remember him, Josh?
I do, from Beaumont Ozen.
And that was always the really weird thing is, like, when he was getting recruited, we all called him Kelvin Chasson. So it's like, and some people, that last name, everybody pronounces it differently. Like,
Yep.
families pronounce it differently.
Yep. Because Justin was Justin Chason.
Yes,
The guy from Gorman a few years ago that obviously had all the problems. But then he's Shashan, and I honestly have never asked Caleb about it. So he may tell me. I'm saying Shashan.
Are we sure that Caleb isn't Kelvin's son?
I'm pretty
The letters
confident.
are just barely different.
His dad actually played ball at Baylor.
I'm just messing around.
I know. But I just
That is
for
really
those
bizarre.
out there that are the
Caleb
uninitiated.
Shashan and Kelvin Shashan.
I always pronounced it Caleb Chasson because it kind of rhymes and flows
It's
together.
cool, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of
a cool
disappointing
name to have.
if we talked to him. He's like, nah, it's Caleb Chasen. It's like, oh, I kind of like Caleb
That's how the
Chasson.
rednecks say it. Well, it made that one guy mad on the board. He was like, "What's this K stuff? What's wrong with parents today?"
Well, that's good.
Thanks, old white guy.
If other people's
Trump
name
vote.
make you upset,
Trump vote.
God. 2 straight weeks, Eddie just took a turn that no one saw coming.
going for gasps.
So you're saying something bad about Trump?
No.
You know, I put that Trump picture on the front page, and I knew that was a powder keg.
I'm surprised they didn't get more anger.
Josh changed it behind my back. He
I absolutely did.
spray painted my art.
How can I
appreciate
tell
that.
these guys they can't talk politics when I've got my co-pub putting up?
It was huge. I mean, Houston was huge. I mean, that
Huge.
totally fit. You're gonna lecture me, Mr. Headline Writer, Mr. Obvious
I
Headline
write
Writer.
some classics. I think everyone is well versed in my my gift for the headline.
There's nothing wrong with a good pun.
I love a pun.
All right, moving on. Here's
Here,
I'm
I got
going to play something for you real quick while we're talking about recruiting in Houston. Here's Bob Stoops this week. Was asked by a reporter about that very thing, about any kind of recruiting cachet playing in Houston, and you guys can tell me. We can try and do the read between the Bob Stoops lines.
It's been a while since you guys have played in Houston. Do you think that'll help with recruiting to physically be back in that area again?
For 4 hours, I don't know. It's not like we go down there every other week, so I don't know that it matters all that much.
Woo. I heard that and I thought, that's what you hear in your head when you ask a question and you think Bob might really enjoy answering. He just craps all over it. But I think there's a reason. I mean, there's got to be a reason why he's just poo-pooing it like that.
I think that might be just his first instinct to take a question that has hype behind it and try to think of ways he could kind of curb it and say, it's not that exciting. Whatever. And you guys get too riled up over
Calm
stuff.
down, Bub.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. But to argue with Bob Stoops himself, I mean, these kids, the more you get into recruiting, you start to realize that they don't follow college football the same way fans do. And so you kind of have to burst their bubbles to get into their attention. And so, like Josh said, this might not be, for Caleb Chasson in 2017 it matters, but down the road there's going to be a ton of Houston kids that have OU shoved into their face because they're in Houston and the local media that wouldn't have been otherwise, and now they're in their consciousness moving forward. So, I don't know. It seemed like a weird way for Bob to respond to that. He could have very easily used that as a recruiting pitch, had an opportunity to sell his program to Houston kids, but he kind of just moved on.
You never know about Bob. I just don't think that.
He crapped on that hard, though.
Yeah,
man.
he did. That was almost a. All right. Was that towards like the end of the session?
It was about mid. I mean, it was like 3 minutes in.
See, that's usually the way he answered that is usually a all right, I'm ready to get out of here type answer.
Trying to pull it back up here.
For 4 hours, I don't know. It's not like we go down there every other week, so I don't know that it matters all that much.
The first question after the game should be, well, we were here for more than 4 hours. You think it helped recruiting?
I know you like to ask a lot of questions.
So yeah, I just thought it was bizarre. It was just
They're going to go see
For
the
a-
number one player in the country. That's a few miles away. I don't understand why. I don't know.
For 4 hours.
I'm with Joe. Like, I don't understand the negative and saying, hey, man, this is a great opportunity for us, to go out and kind of plant our flag somewhere else. It doesn't have to be rah-rah, but, I mean, why shoot it down? Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't make it sound like a big thing.
I think
4
because
hours,
sometimes,
I don't know.
sometimes when he says stuff like that, I feel like he doesn't want to set himself up for if they go out and they lose, then people will come back and say, oh, this is going to be terrible for recruiting. And they're going to probably say that regardless, which sometimes I don't know if that's what he understands, is people are going to usually take the opposite way, or whether it be the right way most of the time. I don't know.
You could be right, and you're right to say that's just not you're not going to control message. You have to do what's best for what you can handle and what you can manage. And a bunch of people saying, quoting Bob Stoops all over Twitter, where recruits can read, "Oh man, we want everybody in Houston, and this is going to be big for us to go and be in front of some of the best players in the country." That's all you have to say. It doesn't have to be, and we're going to kick Houston's head in. Just we get to be in front of all these great talented players.
Houston athletes are some of the best in the country, and we're going to get to.
It's not like we go down there every other week, so I don't know that it matters all that much.
It's not rocket science. Just say yes and we'll move on.
Perfect.
Josh,
Bob's not coming on this show now.
Well, we haven't invited him yet. We'll send the invite.
Yeah, doesn't hurt to
You
ask.
think Bob would want to come on a show with 4 jackasses and?
Yeah.
He doesn't even know me. He could like me.
I'm an interloper. He's just
Did
going to
you
demand
never-
that I not be part of it.
We'll tell him. Sam,
No,
we'll
we
tell
got
him-
it. We have to have Bob on so we can talk about the time that Bob made Josh feel like about 2 inches tall because
Yes.
he mistook him for the early internet guy.
We'll tell him Sam
Kurt
came
Smith.
on. Has come on before.
Josh, man. Josh has taken it from Bob in the past.
Oh, bad. That was like a 1-year run. And it was like a year when there was the thing with the notebook, and then before that, the whole deal with the guy that he thought I was, and then we had the whole thing in practice in front of everyone. I was scarred for.
Was that when you were an
while over
intern
that.
for the Sports Animal?
Yes, that's when I was
Okay.
interning. Like, and you could
You
tell
and
like everybody at
Muffin?
the Animal just ran away from me.
I could see Randy Heights like wheeling his wheelchair away from you as he's staring you down.
Like, I don't think he spoke to me again after that. He's like, "You are persona non grata. You can just get the hell out
Then
of
Josh
here."
moved to Houston because of it.
Seriously, like, I have to get away from this.
No, but there was a time when they would have open practices, and then it's like anything. If it's open, somebody is going to take it to the extreme, and this is a real big reason why practices ended up getting closed. So it was open practices, and like the media would come in, and we'd stand over on the sidelines, and we were accounted for. But then there would be like fans that would come and watch. And in the old field, it won't be that way anymore, but there was like the ramp that went up, in the south end zone. People would stand up on that ramp by the practice fields and watch. And there's a guy, he's a real nice guy. I'm not going to say, I'm not ripping on him at all. There's a guy named Kurt Smith. He used to have, this is back in the day. He used to have this thing. He was like, before there was even message boards or right at the beginning message boards, he used to send out like a fax mailer, like a legitimate, I think it was called the Sooner Sports Letter. But I think he was in medical sales or something like that, but he did it as a hobby. And so he would come to practice and he would like take notes on everything, like how many passes, how many runs, how many of this in a row and what formation they were in, and he would throw it all up on the internet. And then Bob, like, we come to practice one day, and there are these signs up that say no notepads, no pencils, no pens at practice. And so it was all because of Kurt Smith. And Bob thought Josh was Kurt Smith when he was a kid, just going to school and helping out Krabby with the site. And so he yelled at him.
Who does that, though? Like, goes out there and would post every single thing.
Tears for Fears.
Besides
apparently.
Kurt Smith.
Trust me, I think
A
we
lot
all
of
know
people-
there's plenty of fan blogs out there right now that would do the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
even more. He was just ahead of his time.
It amazes me that back then you all could be on the field just watching practice. I mean, I that ramp that goes up into Sooner Vision that overlooks those practices, I would be at work and I'd walk out onto that little walkway and just kind of see what they were doing out there. And if you were out there for more than 30 seconds, they would
Security would
they would send
come get
somebody.
you.
And I work here. I work for the athletic department. Doesn't matter. Okay, whatever.
There's nobody that takes their job more seriously than the
Security
around the stadium and Lloyd Noble Center.
I don't begrudge them. They're just doing their job. They're doing what they're
somebody
told to
told
do.
them to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
All right, side with them.
One more thing for Eddie to hate on today. Okay. I know we were going to get into some things in terms of guys that first game, obviously, there's going to be a lot of new faces out there. I know, Joe, you and I were talking before the show, just kind of about some of the new faces that we're going to see out there. I think obviously everybody knows the main guys that we've been talking about. On the defensive side, we've talked a lot about Parnell Motley and Parrish Cobb. Offensively, Michael Jones is probably the guy that's gotten the most talk. But I mean, you guys want to go ahead and throw your thoughts out there about impact guys or guys that fans really want to look for in this opener.
I mean, new guys that they'll look for. I mean, he's not new from the class of 2016, but Tay Evans will be out there at middle linebacker. I think he's someone that they expect big things from this year. If you want to go the freshman route, I think it will be interesting to see if Parrish Cobb and Parnell Motley do see the field. I mean, Dakota Austin, they said, is going to get the start. Jordan Thomas will be on the other side. But, I mean, Houston's going to go 4-5 wide a lot. Will Johnson, they will use him in a linebacker role, so they might, bring in Parrish Cobb or Parnell Motley to cover somebody in the slot, and you get a chance to see somebody who was playing high school football a few months ago in a big-time game. To me, that's one of the more interesting things. I mean, Michael Jones might get in there and run a few routes, but to me, are those young defensive backs going to work in the game, and are we going to start to see if there's a path forward for them to make a move into the starting lineup?
Let me throw this out there. Game 1, what's the score at halftime? If we're talking about young guys getting a chance to play, Are we talking a battle through 3 quarters?
Side note, do you remember the score at the end of the first quarter against Akron last year?
3-0, right?
3-0. So if Oklahoma comes out against Houston, scores 3 points in the first quarter, I'm guessing it's not going to be 3-0.
If they come out and score 3 points in the first quarter, Lincoln Riley should be fired.
Stop it. You're just firing for effect now.
No, seriously,
Eddie's over here.
I am a strong man. Take a run at me.
You're just raging.
Well, it got me going yesterday when I saw that somebody posted on the board that they don't feel comfortable about the game on Saturday because of the way that Mike Stoops talked over B-roll for 5 minutes. He didn't sound confident enough.
Mike just does. I mean, he comes into the interview room, and he just there's very seldom he's showing any kind of emotion. He either sees it part of his job that he has to do, and he wants to get. Because I'm sure with media, with him getting fired at Arizona, probably not. You don't really have a fondness for media.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Although he sometimes, though, he has a genuineness to him. Even if he doesn't love being there, I almost feel like he can't help himself but just kind of tell you the truth.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. He's not full of BS.
Right. So that's one thing I like about Mike, but he doesn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the vibe that he doesn't like the media. To be honest, that honesty is just refreshing enough, or maybe I don't notice it. But he's someone who'll tell you what he's thinking.
And he'll probably tell you. I mean, it's like that other day when he didn't really want to say who his starter was. But I was like, come on, dude, really?
Yeah,
like, this is, you can hide this? And he's like, well, Dakota.
All right. On a serious note, score at halftime.
Yeah. I'm just asking simply, I'm not even really asking for the score at halftime. I'm asking, is this game going to be nip and tuck throughout?
I just don't get that feeling that it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just completely bought in that I think OU has a chance to be really, really good, but I don't know. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of answers for OU offensively. I just don't. I think that they can run the ball predominantly. If they wanted to, I think they could run the ball 60% of the time and be fine.
I think Eddie's spot on. If I had to predict, I'd say OU runs the ball more than people think in this game. And, I could very easily envision, in fact, I would almost predict that Houston scores a few plays early, scores on a couple of broken plays. Obo doesn't maintain containment, and Greg Ward gets out. One of the receivers slips behind. I could see that happening a few times. But as the game wears on, Oklahoma will find a way to force Houston to get first downs, string a drive together in a way that I don't think Houston's defense can do to Oklahoma.
I think there will be some adjustments that go on because, let's face it, Todd Herman is a really good offensive coordinator. And I think that Greg Ward is going to be able to come out and make some plays, get them on their heels a little bit. But I think OU will make some adjustments. If it's halftime, it's halftime. I think it would probably be before then. But I could see them sticking with them for 2 quarters max. If Greg Ward and their offense is able to kind of pull a rabbit out of the hat here and there.
The one thing I don't know, I don't know if it bugs me or if it's a warning sign that, it's kind of what Joe said. Teams usually come out in this first game, whether it be too anxious and they have a couple procedure penalties and get them behind the chains, or you don't have good, I guess, the quarterback and receivers aren't on the same page and stuff. Things like that do happen, but from what we saw with the offense last year and the way that they ended, they started with the run, and then I think everything opened up with easy passes that Baker was able to make, and whether that be swing passes to Mixon out on the side or anything just between the tackles, I think they're going to be fine. It will be interesting to see, if Oklahoma comes out and they get pushed around by Houston. It's probably a reason for immediate concern. And something I've always joked around with my friends is you usually know in the first quarter during the Stoops era, the last 18 years, you usually know, is this going to be a game that they lose? Or at least I feel like it is. And sometimes they come back and they have miracle victories. Like the Tennessee game was definitely probably one of those, they're going to lose this game, then they came back and pulled one. But you usually have a good idea or a good feel if Oklahoma's going to lose that night.
Truthfully, yes.
So, I do tend to agree with that. I think it is kind of the heart-sinking fan in me, I guess, that feels that way too. Like if it goes bad, it just goes bad. But I don't think you can discount Baker Mayfield. What he means to that team. When you start out slow like that and things are going, really bad, usually it falls apart because you don't have somebody leading you under center.
Well, in recent years, I think that you definitely have hit it right on the head. It's been
Or you have Landry Jones, and he's the guy making the mistakes that are putting you behind all the time.
And usually there's no faith in him coming back out of anything.
Yeah, Baker's got more of that baseball player mentality of, all right, next at bat, or like a cornerback, I got beat, all right, whatever. Next time up there, doesn't seem to have residual effects. If that Tennessee game opened up with an interception where I think it hit off D.D. Westbrook's fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that can easily happen where you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and just kind of a fluke thing happens, a tip happens, Houston gets momentum. But Kerry's right. Baker Mayfield's a great thing for Oklahoma to have, that calming presence.
The point of the conversation really was just to say, I don't know how much opportunity young guys are going to have to play, because let's face it, when things, especially with Mike Stoops on defense, when things are tight, they want the starters out there. And the same thing happens with receivers. If things are tight, they're not going to be rotating 6 guys. They're going to have Dede and Mark Andrews and Jarvis Baxter and then probably Geno Lewis or A.D. Miller. That's 5 guys right there. And if it's tight, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Dahu Green and Jeffrey Mead.
And also, you're going to see a lot of 21. You're going to see a lot of 2 backs with Mark Andrews in there and then D.D. Westbrook on the outside. So there's going to be one wide receiver role to fill for most of the game. And, who knows if A.D. Miller goes out there on the first drive and looks impressive, I could see them just saying, okay, let's let A.D., let's ride the hot hand. Or whoever they put out there, if someone does well, they could just ride the hot hand.
Josh, let me ask you something. How much did you see? How many times did you see Mark Jackson in high school?
I saw him, let's see, it would have been twice. One of those was when he was a sophomore, though. I didn't see him in person as a senior because he was committed to A&M for so long that it just did end up being kind of a fit within my schedule. But, yeah, I saw him a couple times. I saw him his sophomore year, and then I saw him again his junior year.
I mean, he made the depth chart.
Yeah.
But from what little we got to see of him,
yeah,
he just looked like a guy that didn't really look like, I mean, he didn't look like he'd gotten a lot of coaching in his life.
Well, I think that tells you where they are at outside linebacker. I mean, they just don't have a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of bodies. And I think it also says something. Mark's a talented guy. I mean, so
no, he definitely is.
Yeah. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I mean, it just kind of tells you that both their hand is forced. They're going to have to play some young guys they're not ready to play in a perfect world. But at the same time, he is at least he's a guy that has the ability to do some good things. He's going to make some bust and he's going to make some mistakes, but I think you're right. In a perfect world, he probably wouldn't be all that different than Obo, who we all saw flashes of from the minute he was eligible to play. But at the same time, you're like, well, he's not, he doesn't have it all down. He's not where they need him to be mentally. And Mark's a really sharp kid, so I have no doubt he's improved considerably from that day early in camp when you guys got to see him. But there's no way that they really feel like in a perfect world we'd be playing him. So, and I don't know that it's all that different for Caleb Kelly. I think he's probably in the same boat as far as if we didn't have to play him, we wouldn't.
And I think this too. If Obo had someone there that was a really good player, there's a reason he was a backup last year. I mean, he's not Devontae Bond or Eric Stryker. He would have been beaten out if they had better players at outside linebacker.
Oh yeah, I like I said. I mean, that was the thing. It's a shame we didn't have the podcast back then. But I remember a couple of signing days ago when Bob was telling everybody, "Oh no, our numbers are where we expect them to be at linebacker." There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, I remember that being kind of a controversy.
That you can tell me this is where they wanted to be at linebacker, and it wasn't them. They're like, "Well, we have Stryker and Bond." Well, that's great. But you're lucky, not, I guess Stryker never went down, and Bond just kind of had nagging stuff last year, so they didn't really have to pay the price. This year is when it's scary. Next year, guys like Kelly and Jackson will have some experience. Maybe Ricky DeBerry starts to come along. I mean, you have some reason to think that it gets better. This year is where you kind of have to bridge that gap and where those numbers really come home and hurt you.
I get the impression they are very excited with how Capri Doucette has come in and played. He's somebody who's filled a hole with some experience at outside linebacker that maybe they weren't sure that they were going to get from those JUCO guys.
But again, to me, is that just, okay, you've got a mature guy, an experienced guy, a guy that knows how to fit into a defense that's played somewhere close to this speed. Are they just happy because he can get out there and execute what they want him to execute? And I still question, is he really an elite athlete, or is he just a guy that cannot go out there and screw up?
I think that's a very scary proposition when you consider how important the linebacker is going to be on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, they could very easily go out there, and I don't think it's going to happen, but if Capri Doucette and the linebackers don't play well, they could get beat by 10 points.
See, for everything I've heard is, that I talk to people that have watched, it's always, they're very impressed that Doucette, can run around and be where he's supposed to be, and he can make plays, but the defense doesn't fall apart when he's out there. When I hear people talk about like Emmanuel Beal, it's more like they're talking about he has really kind of like holy crap plays, like he has oh wow type plays in him and he does bust, and he's not always in the right place at the right time. But to me, from what I hear from people, Beal's the guy that really has almost elite athleticism, where Doucette's just kind of a steady as he goes type.
And I think that's right, because I mean that matches up more with what I saw on film. I think we talked about it. Kerry, you played some audio. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, where we were talking about, Mike Stoops was talking about how elite Capri is athletically, and was actually even comparing him to Stryker.
Yeah.
And I think we came back out of that, and I was like, I didn't see that on tape. Not that he's not a good athlete, but I didn't see a guy like that. Now, when I watched Beal, you were kind of like, well, this guy's got some stuff. Now, you knew he was 190 pounds, so that had to factor into how you were looking at him. But he was the guy that I thought, boy, he kind of jumps off the screen with how he can close and do some of those things. It wasn't Doucette. Doucette, like I said, I thought he would be inside, and I thought he might end up being a pretty good player. I didn't think he was going to be outside and be compared to Stryker by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, guys, and I want you guys to talk about this because you've been around as much as I have, but I think it was really strange because at the start of camp, I think it almost like took a while for us as media for the light to come on about how big a part Will Johnson is of this defense. And it was like, because we could never really, remember there was that one day I asked Bob, like, because I was like, so Obo's playing Stryker's position. He was like, no, Will Johnson's playing Stryker's position. And it didn't compute, and I didn't understand what he was saying. It took me some time to figure it out, so I think that's where the confusion was. But essentially, what they did a year ago was instead of having a nickel, they had Stryker. And he was supposed to be able to drop back in coverage and do all this stuff. That's what you would want that guy, but he didn't do that. I mean, he was just an edge rusher, and they covered up for him. And the other defensive backs had to cover up for him, and the linebackers had to cover up for him. But essentially, now they're just back to having a nickel instead of having a Stryker, and Obo kind of is their edge rusher on the other side. He plays where Bond was playing. But what's crazy is the more we go along, you kind of find out that he's pretty much the key to this defense this year.
It's been insane, actually. I mean, listening to Bob talk about him, from Bob going on the podium and talking about him on Monday, talking about how he's been the guy that's given the offense such a big fit during the preseason as Will Johnson. And then you look at you talk to Lincoln Riley, and he said the same thing on Tuesday or on Monday afternoon at post-practice interviews. And Kerry, I know that you talked to Will Johnson a little bit. I think Joe, you were over there and talked to him a little bit. It seems like he is primed to have a good season. Going back, just I guess from the video standpoint of things, he made a lot of plays last year. He was around the ball a lot.
No, he did.
I had a bunch of clips of him of making really nice plays. I think the number one that came to mind was the play out in the flat at Kansas State. He knocked down a ball, and then he made a really good tackle for a loss. But there's a lot of weight being put on his shoulders, and it seems like I don't know, just for me, it's funny that he's just a redshirt junior and he's not a senior.
Here's Mike Stoops just Tuesday talking about Will Johnson.
Mike, can you talk about going back to the spring when you just decided or knew that Will Johnson would be one of your top 11, kind of what you saw in him to make you go in that direction?
Well, I think we gave him opportunities a year ago, and when he got his opportunity, he really played well and was a playmaker, and that just continued throughout the season. And then as we went through spring and continued this fall, he's a guy who can do a lot of different things. So we feel he gives us a lot of flexibility in our defense to get into fronts, get in and out of fronts, do different things. So when you play 5 DBs, it gives you some more opportunities to play more coverages as well.
Yeah, Will Johnson is someone who I talked to at Media Days earlier in August, and I just kind of got this vibe from him that I really liked. He's a very thoughtful guy. He's very cerebral clearly when he plays the game. And I remembered him, like you guys said last year, he was in on a lot of plays, especially behind the line of scrimmage. And so, I think I wrote that article called Good Will Johnson, stealing from Josh's amazing pun names, and about how he does that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, he has that GIF. I put that Kansas State GIF in there where he makes a tackle behind line of scrimmage, and I talked about how he made more tackles for loss last year than Matthew Romar, Jordan Wade, Frank Shannon, Ahmad Thomas, and Obo. I mean, those are bigger guys around the line of scrimmage that Will was making more plays than behind the line. And then I was talking to some people around the program, and I started to get the vibe that while last year, they loved Stryker and everything he can bring, they knew they had to put him in there for one role. And they had to find ways to kind of maneuver the defense around him. And now this year with Will Johnson, they feel they can just call a defense and have Will out there to do anything that he can do. He can cover, he can rush, and that he will be more of a force rushing the passer than people realized, maybe covering guys in the slot and sneaking up. So I am with you all that his emergence has been surprising, but maybe it shouldn't have been, because the way he played last year when he came in was he was a force behind the line of scrimmage, and he added 22 pounds in the offseason, so he obviously has the work ethic.
Well, they're asking him to basically be both a defensive back and a linebacker. That was why the Roy back position became what it was, is because he was big enough to help stuff the run, yet at least in college, he could help support the pass a lot better and run with receivers. That ended up being his undoing in the NFL because he was really not that fleet of foot when it came to being a true guy in the secondary. But I had a chance to kind of just catch up one-on-one a little bit with Will Johnson after practice on Tuesday, and wanted to play some of that for you guys here.
Are you a guy that, that you practice, you have to spend a lot of time between Coach Cooks and Coach Mike a little bit because you're in such a unique position like that?
Yeah, I actually break the huddle at the end with both groups. I run the Coach Mike's huddle and say 1, 2, 3 centers, and I run the Coach Cook's huddle and say 1, 2, 3 centers.
So you're working extra hard.
Yeah, I work extra hard. I'm trying to get the pass concepts from Coach Cooks and then get the run concepts from Coach Mike and trying to combine all. So
was that, did you figure that out in the spring and in the off season? Was that kind of your job, or did that come easy to you? It sounds like you're carrying a heavier load than most guys on defense.
Yeah, I feel that way because I felt as though I was having to master one thing and then have a couple okay practice at DB and then have to get the wrinkles out of DB later and then come back and just put both of them together, like put 2 and 2 together. So, it was definitely a little bit tough at first, but I think I pulled on pretty quick to it.
Bob was saying that you're going to surprise people as a pass rusher. What is it about you? Are you like a running back getting skinny in the hole, or you just have a knack for finding your way through?
Yeah, I just feel
blockers.
I think it's just a knack for finding a way through blockers, and then another thing, just expecting what's going to happen. And most of the time, I wouldn't even say it's a guess. It's just like the film that you studied will tell you the truth. I'm not sure if a lot of guys just don't understand film or don't know how to break it down, but I know it's enough athletes on this team that if we all watch film and dissect it the way I feel like I understand it, we all would be beasts. I just pretty much the film study, just breaking it down.
You East Coast guys just feel like you got to work harder than everybody else because you're not from where football is a religion, like Texas kids.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that. I think the guys that make it out of there are always going to be like a top guy, but since we're not recruited as much, I don't think like our guys our mid-major type of guys who possibly could play here, but they possibly couldn't. They don't normally get off here. They only go off like maybe the top guy from our area, so he's normally pretty good, to say the least. So, a guy like Tap and stuff like that. So, he's normally pretty good if you're recruited from that area.
Unofficial 40.
So, there's Will Johnson basically saying, I rule the film room. Yeah, you should too.
Maybe the most
get better.
Maybe the most humble brag.
Get on my level.
Maybe the most humble brag of film watching I've ever heard. Do you feel like...
Reminded me a little bit of this yesterday.
You gotta move, man. Go on, get away from over here, please. You're making the block hot, buddy.
Swaggy P.
Little Swaggy P. I love that video from yesterday.
Will Johnson, he gives me a little bit of a feel of Dakota Johnson in that he feels a little hardened.
Dakota Austin. See, you
what
did
I
it
say?
You did it too.
You did it today.
What did I just say?
I at least caught you.
Dakota Johnson.
I did that yesterday.
Don Johnson's
I typed
daughter.
Dakota Johnson. Who is that?
It's Don Johnson's daughter. It's the 50 Shades of Grey chick.
Well, I've never
She's
read
Don Johnson's
that.
daughter?
Yes.
I did not know
Melanie Griffith's daughter too, I think.
Wow.
Okay. Dakota Austin.
Yes.
I feel like he's a little bit hardened in that I don't know if I'd want to meet him in a back alley. It's kind of the same as Dakota Austin. I don't know. I feel like they're two personalities that I don't think have been around the Oklahoma program in a while, I guess would be the best way to put it.
By the way, here's another humble brag from yesterday from one of Oklahoma's best.
I think I'm twice the player that I was last year, and I think the coaches and some of the players around me would agree. In the physical aspect, I think I'm making more accurate throws and smarter decisions, and then at the same time, I'm checking out of plays and like I said earlier, putting our team in the best situation to win while also taking care of the ball. And I think that's my most important aspect of what I'm doing here is putting us in a good situation to win.
I just want to talk about Baker real quick before we get out of here. But it's been interesting because it seems like nothing but good things have happened for him recently. And you wondered how he's going to keep that chip on his shoulder. I guarantee you, every time somebody comes out, like, I know Mike Farrell's been doing this top 50 list on Rivals. Every time he comes out as the number 7 player in the country, I guarantee that pisses him off. I mean,
yeah. There's no doubt.
He clearly looks for that stuff. I mean, he knows how to live in a world where he only gets bad news about himself or perceived bad news. So,
well, it's just a different type of mentality, guys. I mean, like, if any of us were the top 7 in anything, that would be like the moment of our lives. For Baker, it's an insult. Like, I mean, we talk about it all the time with these kids, like, I'm not the number 1 guy in the country. I can't believe Rivals would slam me like that. Bro, you're number 4 out of like 1 million high school football players. Like, that's as good a compliment as someone could be paid, save 3. So that's why, again, that's why he is very good, is because he finds something to be angry about that the normal person would not think twice about.
Well, I'm ready to see, how this all works out. I don't think it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, it's not beyond Baker to come out and throw for 400 yards in game 1. I don't think it'll happen just because he has to figure out what he's going to do without Sterling Shepard. And, if D.D. Westbrook really steps up and becomes the player that he is capable of being, that he is athletically gifted enough to be, then, yeah, they can just keep moving on. And Baker can just keep being himself. But I think the running game is what they're going to, and Baker has said this, he's going to lean on the running game, and he's prepared to lean on the running game to take shots down the field and make the passing game I don't see Baker going into this saying, okay, we're going to throw the ball 45 times. I think he looks at the passing game right now as it's developing. He's going to use the running game to set it up, to get guys in one-on-one situations. And even when he does that, is A.D. Miller going to come down with the ball? Is Jeffrey Mead going to come down with the ball? Is D.D. Westbrook going to come? I mean, Sterling Shepard would come down with balls. That's why that's why Trevor Knight would only throw to him. So nobody has proven that, if they do get in those situations, they can execute.
It's amazing that you go just a year with Baker now, and it's like he can do the impossible almost. Anybody believes that OU can play with anybody because of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
When
I mean,
they were 8-5 and coming off of that, and people were wondering if he was just some flash in the pan at Texas Tech.
And it just seems like everybody believes in anything that he can do. And, if there was an added chip that he needed, it was the comments from Jonathan Vilma. And that's all he's thinking about now. And he was asked about it on Tuesday, and he just kind of left it at,
we'll see Saturday.
Yeah, I respect Jonathan Vilma's game, but we'll see on Saturday. And he walked out of the press conference. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And the other thing that he said about Houston was just the team's mentality, in that Houston, they finished with a better record than OU last year. They won their bowl game last year. And, in that locker room, they think that goes a long way. That they're focused on Houston. I don't think there's any question that they're not overlooking Houston or anything about this game on Saturday. So it will be it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
I'm a little shocked that there's not more, I don't know, concern is the right word about that game. I mean, that's a good team. That's a team that's Baker mentioned. Put it to everybody they played last year except for one. So I don't know. I think that Baker Mayfield, he only threw for 400 yards once last year in that Tulsa game. I would be shocked if he threw for 400 yards in this one. I've said it on the board. I think Oklahoma needs to work inside out, need to work that running game as hard as they can. It's pretty simple. I think they're better in the interior line than they were a year ago. Work Mark Andrews over the middle. If you have D.D. Westbrook in one-on-one situations, go ahead and abuse it. But other than that, work inside out, and I think Oklahoma will be fine.
All right, it's time for us to get out of here. I want everybody to kind of give a bold prediction, though, for the season. Josh, I know you're loving this time of year because, well, there's so much going on, and recruiting's really not. Everybody's, those high school kids are focused more on getting their seasons going. So I know it's probably frustrating for some people, but you probably have to enjoy this time of year.
Well, I do, because I get to just watch college football a little bit. I mean, that's always, for me, it kills me because there's more and more high school games on Saturdays, and it takes away from my ability to kind of enjoy college football, because that's why I got into this. I love college football. So I'm enjoying a little bit of slowdown, and I realize that people want recruiting news. But just like, I guess the fans and us and everything else, the coaches are locked into the season opener right now. I think next week you'll see it kind of shift back. It's ULM. Oklahoma can kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit and kind of shift back to recruiting. It's not to say that they're not doing anything in recruiting. There's just not going to be a lot of waves made right now. So I think next week you'll probably see some new offers go out. You'll see some changes. And yeah, I mean, this is a great time of year, but I'm going to have to think about my bold prediction because I feel like I give out a bunch of them, so I'm going to have to come up with something completely original while Joe and Eddie fire out some of theirs.
Joe, Eddie, either one of you want to step to the forefront here?
I don't know. I mean, I could repeat the one I put in my last 3-2-1. That was fairly bold, I think.
That's bold.
I mean, I've never made such a bold prediction, but I felt really good about it.
About the running back situation?
Yeah, I think P. Ryan and Mixon could very well rush for 3,000 yards combined. I think it could happen. In that, I know it sounds crazy, but in that article I pointed out that they need about, I think it was like 110 more carries this year than they got last year at their same average. And, both of them were banged up at times last year. Next year, Rodney Anderson's neck injury. Abdul Adams will get some carries, but not a lot. And in 2008, when they had Chris Brown and DeMarco Murray, Moses Madu, they had more than enough carries for them to get to, I think it was 511 carries. And as long as they average 6 yards a carry, which they did a year ago, you're there. So I think that's where Oklahoma needs to heavily rely on this year. I think those are two guys that are going to be two starting NFL running backs one day, two good starting NFL running backs one day. You lose your best weapon on the outside. You get better on the interior. I think the recipe is just there for a huge year on the ground for Oklahoma, if they want it.
I guess that brings it to me, and I think I'm getting ready to double down on what I said last weekend and take it one step further. The first week of December, it won't be Baker Mayfield in New York City. It'll be Joe Mixon.
Wow.
Ooh. I mean, he won't be there. He will not be there because the votes
has been dropped.
But that's a great pick. I don't think people realize how good
he's got to do an interview first.
Yeah, that's the problem. But I don't know.
The problem with Mixon is it's impossible for him to rehabilitate his character or whatever, his personality. He can't rehabilitate himself until he starts talking to the media and people see him besides the guy that got suspended for a year for hitting a girl.
Exactly.
And his lawyer, I'm not saying it's OU's fault. It's his lawyer's fault.
Yep.
I mean, trust me, it drives OU sports information people crazy that they can't put him out in front of the media.
I promise you they want to.
They want to.
Yep.
And I think Bob wants to. But it's an impossible situation.
What better place to address everything than
New
York City?
I mean, he hasn't addressed it yet. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and trust me, Lindsey Schnell would be there, and she'd have every right to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd be peppering him left and right.
There would be so much pressure. Like, think about Chris Fowler sitting in that chair doing the little one-on-ones he does before the Heisman thing. Like, he'd have to ask a couple of tough questions, and it's on national live TV. Joe's got no way out of that.
Yeah.
To Eddie's point, though,
send a stunt double.
Todd McShay, who, say what we can say about Todd McShay, that's all probably fair, but he sat down to watch Samaje Perine tape, and he started tweeting about Joe Mixon instead. He said, I can't stop watching Joe Mixon play. If you go back and watch games from a year ago, even games like Tennessee where he didn't have a huge game, there are moments like there was a 3rd and 6, and he breaks a couple tackles, bounces outside, picks it up. He had a 56-yard catch that got called back for a penalty. I think he had multiple 50-plus yard catches last year that got called back for a penalty. His talent trumps everything. I mean, he's the most talented guy on that offense.
He's got a physical build like Marshawn Lynch, but he can play receiver like, I mean, name anyone. I mean, I don't know that he has a ceiling as a receiver.
I've said it since, I guess, the day that we saw him in Chicago. He is probably one of the best high school players I've seen with my eyes since working with you guys.
Yeah, I could see that.
Just the most talented guy. And I think he's going, I guess I went a little farther. You said bold, and I went bold.
Yeah.
So I just think he's going to have a humongous year.
I obviously agree.
All right.
Hashtag 3000.
I don't want to make a bold prediction that's going to piss people off, but I'm going to say this. Here's my prediction. TCU gets Oklahoma. With that game being where it's at, after just playing Ohio State, playing Houston. I think, unfortunately, TCU is going to get Oklahoma in Fort Worth this year.
I don't think you can sit here and say that's a crazy thing to say. It's their first 5 games are just so tough. I don't think you can just say that they could show up and, well, I guess they can show up and beat Louisiana Monroe, but it's an awkward spot after this Houston game, before Ohio State. Then you get through those first 3 non-cons. You have a bye week, and then all of a sudden you're going to Fort Worth with Texas the next week.
But you know what? If you make it close and you've beaten Ohio State and Houston goes on to have a good game, you barely lose to TCU, and then you somehow win the Big 12, I think you can still get in the college football playoff.
I think that would be fine. But to your point, Kerry, they got to play Greg Ward Jr., J.T. Barrett, and Kenny Hill in the first month of the season. So if they can't get their ducks in a row guarding a dual-threat quarterback, not only could they drop to TCU, I mean, there's a couple of landmines early in the season, and it wouldn't shock me if that's the one where Oklahoma trips. They somehow make it through the big ones, then let down and go into TCU. They almost lost last year.
What would you guys say if I said the odds of Oklahoma going 3-2 in the first 5 is almost as good as them going 5-0 in the first 5?
Say that one more time.
The odds of Oklahoma coming out 3-2 in that first 5 is almost as good as the odds of them going 5-0 in that first 5. I think 4-1's the bet. I think that's the likely scenario, but 5-0 seems really pie in the sky to me, and 3-2 against that schedule doesn't seem as impossible as it sounds, even though I think Oklahoma is a really good team.
With the expectations and the odds you would get, I would probably lean towards 3-2, since people seem to be thinking 5-0 is not only a possibility but a probability. So I'd lean towards the 3-2 just on the odds I would get. But I think that's
if I had to put money on it in Vegas, if those are my only 2 choices, I'd put money down on 3-2. I think that's. Well,
I don't think I'd really thought about it till right now, but I mean, you look at that. That's not crazy.
I don't know. I mean, Ohio State's so young. I mean, they're just so young, and that's so early.
They lost another safety today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Ohio State coming into here, as long as they beat Houston, as long as they're 2-0 going into that Ohio State game, I don't think that Ohio State team is capable of handling what they're going to face in this environment in Norman.
I think there's some truth in that. TCU, I'm real interested. I don't think your pick's crazy, Kerry, but it's just, man, I feel like one half of football has become the story of, like, TCU football. Like, people forget they were getting housed by Oregon in that game and lost their 2 best players by a mile. So I don't know. We'll see. Now, I mean, I know those guys didn't play in that game, so that's kind of irrelevant. But as good as they were last year, the 2 guys that really carried that team are gone, and their best running back. So I don't know. We'll see. TCU, I feel like it's everybody buying into Gary Patterson more than what's actually there.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this.
That's why I'm doing it. I mean,
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, and OU's track record in Fort Worth the last few years has not been great.
I have a lot of friends that have kind of thrown out that, well, there's going to be somebody that has a career game against OU this year. They think it's going to happen. You know, Tavon Austin or Seth Deege. They've in their mind they've been beaten too much in the past by these guys who have career games. And I kind of threw out the question, okay, well, who do you think that candidate would be this year? And I think the first name thrown out was Kenny Hill. They could just envision starting the year 3-0. Going down to Fort Worth, having all that hype, and then Kenny Hill throws for 400 yards, runs for another 100 in the OU season.
I don't know. There's a Joe T. Garcia's in Fort Worth, and we know Mexican restaurants are Kenny Hill's kryptonite.
You think he's going to be passed out in a palm?
They had a lot of patio space there.
They got cheap margs there?
And you,
no, that's all Joe T. Garcia's is.
Yeah,
boom.
I wouldn't blame him. More power to him if he does that. It might be something I've done before.
He's only human. They're cheap margs. What can you do?
It's a TCU quarterback tradition. If
we should go there this year.
You better pay cash though, or bring cash.
Cash you only paying cash?
Cash
Joe
only.
T. Garcia's?
Cash only.
Man, we're on.
Their salsa is
Eddie
good.
would know that.
That's a place that we used to go every Friday before OU Texas.
Does Josh have a bold prediction that's not such a bummer? I feel like all the people listening now are kind of.
Yeah, Josh, where are you going with your bold prediction?
You know, Kerry, you kind of talked me into this one. I've been sitting here kind of looking at it and trying to figure out where I want to go. I'm kind of surprised I'm where I'm at because this just came to me as I'm looking at it. I think I'm going to go with D.D. Westbrook having more yardage than Sterling Shepard last year.
Wow.
Woo.
Wow.
You look at his yards per catch, and again, some of that's affected by all the coverage rolling to Shepard last year. But his yards per catch was almost a yard better than Shepard last year. Excuse me, it was over a yard better than Shepard last year. So he doesn't even have to have the same number of catches, which I don't think he'll get as Sterling got.
I think Sterling had 83
to hit that
last
kind of
year.
number. So you're talking 1289. He needs about 78 catches, 79 catches to hit that number, which with no clear-cut number 3 receiver, I think it's possible. Mixon's the question. If they're going to make Mixon a 45, 50-catch guy, then I don't think Dede can do it. But if he's more like 25 or 30, then I think it's completely attainable.
My other bold prediction, my bonus bold prediction, Josh, is that we're getting to Houston tonight, but we're getting there late.
If you guys are here before
Manville,
10:30,
yeah, you're doing Manville
I'll buy
and North
lunch
Shore.
tomorrow.
I don't know how
That's
attractive
kind of
it is. Where are we talking?
Oh, you're talking El Tiempo. You guys are going to be by El Tiempo. You've heard about it for too long. That's happening tomorrow at lunch.
Okay.
We won't tell anybody
Nice.
which El Tiempo. We have the advantage that there are several in Houston.
This is like a morning animal burrito bet of all time. Like I get El Tiempo instead of breakfast burritos.
Yeah, you can get the burrito. You can get anything on that menu. It's all good.
We're getting the better side of this.
Well, either way, we're either paying or
we're eating
Josh
El
is
Tiempo.
paying.
This is a
Yeah.
win.
You're eating, yeah, exactly. You're eating El Tiempo. It's all going to be good after that.
Joe's over in the corner with a little tear in his eye right now.
I'll hold down the fort in the 405, I guess.
Well, I'm excited. I'm ready to get out of here. Glenn Campbell, he's fired up.
Not again.
Joe, you both are fired again. All right.
Eddie's going to be playing Paul Wall the whole way down here.
I need to run home and get my grill.
Get some Rick Ross, the boss.
You guys have traveled with me. You know I'm down with whatever.
We had the 90s pop stretch back from Kansas City was great. I didn't know that you had that in you, that you can hang with some 90s pop stuff.
Of course.
That was beautiful.
That list has even grown. I got some All for One on there now.
Ooh, nice.
Maybe a little BB Mac.
Hey, quick before we get out of here. Eddie and Joe, we referenced Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith earlier. Do you two know who those people are?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay.
Don Johnson,
Eddie?
I know the
Vice.
names. I don't know who they are.
Don
I know
John-
that they're actors, right?
Miami Vice.
Are they still alive?
Yeah.
How young is the dude right now with Eddie? Figuring how young he is. Wait, Melanie Griffith with the other one? She was in Now and Then, which is a movie I dig with Rosie O'Donnell and Rita Wilson and Demi Moore.
Joe's
Melanie Griffith.
movie interests are they're notable. We should have a conversation about that at some point.
Probably likes chocolate.
I have never seen Chocolat. I do love what movie is that? Is I Love You Man, where Paul Rudd keeps talking about how much he loves chocolate.
That's fantastic.
They had a summer salad and watched chocolate. It was delightful.
And then Jason, it's chocolate. Just say chocolate.
All right, I think that's the best that we can do. I think we've run out of podcast. We've certainly had a long. Hey, I want to say this to everyone out there listening. We really appreciate the listening. The numbers are just climbing and been outstanding. I'd like to ask you guys if you can go to iTunes and give us a rating, good or bad. I don't care if you say we suck, but I'd love you to go there and just write a little review and say what you think of the podcast. Eddie will threaten you with your life if you give us a 1-star.
No, I won't threaten you, but I will judge you.
But subscribe.
You're wrong.
Here's the thing. If you subscribe either on Stitcher, iTunes, and for you Android people, Stitcher's are really probably the best way to go, I would say. I don't know. I'm not an Android weirdo like Joe and Josh, so maybe you guys can tune in there, but or give me your thoughts there. But the Android, Google Play Store, SoundCloud. But like if you're an iPhone user, the best thing to do is just go on iTunes and subscribe, because as soon as we upload this video or this podcast, it'll download right to your phone. So that's the best way to get it, other than just on the website, staying on there. So appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate Josh McQuistion back in his studio. Eddie Radosevich, Joe Duvall here in studio. I am Kerry Murdoch as well. And appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you next time on the Unofficial 40.